The rain fell softly over the marble courtyard. Each drop struck the stone with a faint, hollow echo. Ian stood beneath the old banyan tree, his bare feet sinking into the wet earth. The smell of damp soil rose around him, thick and heavy, clinging to his breath. From the great mansion beyond the gates, laughter spilled into the night. Golden light shimmered through the curtains, warm and unreachable. He could see their silhouettes moving inside, tall, elegant figures dancing beneath chandeliers. His mother's voice called from the servants' quarters, faint and trembling. Ian, come inside, before they see you. But he did not move. His fingers brushed the iron bars, cold and rough against his skin. He remembered how, earlier that evening, the master's son had thrown a coin at his feet. Buy yourself a new life, the boy had said, smiling without warmth. The words echoed louder than the thunder now rolling through the sky. Ian's heart pounded, not from fear, but from something sharper, something growing wild inside him. He turned toward the dim corridor leading to the kitchens. The walls were damp, the air filled with the scent of kerosene and old spices. A faint light flickered from the lantern hanging crookedly near the door. He heard whispers, hurried, broken, coming from the pantry. His mother's voice again, but softer this time, pleading. Then, a man's voice, low, commanding, unfamiliar. Ian stepped closer, the floorboards creaking beneath his feet. He pressed his ear to the wooden door. The sound of his mother crying sent a chill crawling up his spine. He pushed the door open just a little. The lantern's flame swayed, casting shadows that stretched like long, trembling fingers across the walls. His mother knelt on the floor, clutching something to her chest. The man before her wore the master's coat. It was not the master. It was his son, and in his hand gleamed the same silver coin Ian had left buried in the mud outside. The boy smiled when he saw Ian. Ah, he said softly. The servant's son returns. Ian's mouth went dry. The rain outside grew heavier, hammering against the roof like fists. The lantern flickered once more, and in that flicker, Ian saw the lantern flickered once more, and in that flicker, Ian saw something that made his body go still. His mother's hands were stained red. Not bright red, but dark, deep, like rusted iron underwater. For a moment, he could not breathe. The air inside the pantry felt heavier than the storm outside. His mother turned her face toward him, her eyes wide and wet, trembling with something between fear and shame. Ian, she whispered, go back to your room. But her voice broke halfway through, as if she already knew he would not obey. The master's son tilted his head, a cruel smirk tugging at his lips. So, he said, you see now what kind of people work for us. He tossed the coin in his hand, letting it spin in the air before catching it again. The faint metallic ring cut through the silence like a blade. Ian's gaze dropped to the floor. Something glimmered there near his mother's knee, a shard of glass, sharp and wet with the same red stain. The rain's rhythm grew louder, striking the tin roof above in frantic bursts. He could hear his own heartbeat pounding inside his ears. Tell him, the boy demanded. Tell your son what you tried to do. His mother shook her head, her lips quivering. I only wanted to protect you, she said. He was hurting you, Ian. I could not watch it any longer. Ian's mind spun. He looked from her to the boy and then to the broken glass on the floor. There was a deep cut across the boy's hand, fresh and glistening. The smell of blood mixed with the scent of kerosene, thick and dizzying. The boy stepped closer, his polished shoes tapping softly on the wet floor. You will both leave by morning, he said coldly. If my father finds out, he will make you pay in ways you cannot imagine. Ian's fists clenched, his nails biting into his palms. He wanted to speak, to shout, to do something, but no words came out. The boy turned to leave, brushing past him with a look of disgust. As he passed, Ian felt the brush of cold metal against his wrist, the silver coin. The boy had slipped it into his hand, mocking him even in retreat. When the door closed, the silence that followed was unbearable. The lantern flame quivered again, shadows crawling up the walls like restless ghosts. His mother sank to the floor, covering her face. Her shoulders shook with quiet sobs. Ian knelt beside her, his voice small and unsteady. What did he do, Amma? She did not answer right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was so soft it almost vanished under the sound of the storm. He found you playing near the gate, she said. He pushed you into the mud, called you a name I could not bear to hear. I told him to stop, but he laughed. She paused, her breath trembling. He raised his hand at me, Ian. I pushed him back, and he fell into the glass jars. It was an accident, but he will never tell it that way. Ian sat frozen, the truth pressing down like a weight. He wanted to comfort her, to promise that everything would be fine, but deep inside, he knew nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning came grey and heavy, the rain still falling like a curtain between worlds. They packed what little they owned into a cloth bundle. The servants' quarters were silent, even the others avoided their eyes. As they stepped out through the back gate, Ian looked one last time at the mansion, the marble walls, the golden windows, the life that had never belonged to them. But then, he noticed something strange. At the corner of the courtyard, where the banyan tree stood, a shadow moved. Someone was watching. He squinted through the mist and saw the master himself, standing in the doorway. His face was unreadable, carved from stone. He raised his hand slowly, not in farewell, but in command. The guards came forward. Ian's mother froze. Ian, she whispered, run. He took a step back, but before he could move again, the master's voice cut through the rain. Bring them inside. The guards seized them both, dragging them back through the courtyard. Mud splashed against Ian's legs, cold and sticky. He could hear his mother pleading, her voice breaking against the storm. They were taken to the great hall. The chandeliers were lit, their light dazzling and cruel. The master stood by the staircase, his eyes fixed on his son, who now sat on a chair with his hand bandaged, his face pale but defiant. Tell me, the master said quietly, what happened? The boy opened his mouth but hesitated. For the first time, there was fear in his eyes. Ian's mother lowered her head. I hurt him, she said, but only to protect my child. The room fell silent. Even the rain seemed to pause outside. The master walked slowly toward her. He stopped, so close that Ian could smell the faint scent of tobacco on his coat. Then he turned his gaze toward Ian. His eyes softened for a brief, flickering moment. Your mother once saved my life, he said. Before you were born. Ian blinked, confused. The master sighed, weary and old. I cannot undo what has been done, he said. But you will not be thrown out tonight. He turned away, his hand tightening on the banister. Go to the old quarters by the well. Stay there until I decide what to do with you. The guards released them. Ian helped his mother up. As they walked away, the master's son glared at him, hatred burning behind his pale eyes. Ian felt something shift inside him, not fear, not shame, but a spark of quiet resolve. When they reached the old quarters, the place smelled of dust and forgotten years. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling, and the wind whispered through broken shutters. His mother sat down, her hands trembling. Ian looked out the window. The mansion loomed in the distance, a shadow against the grey morning. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this was not the end. The rain had washed the world clean, but it had also buried something dark beneath the surface, something that would rise again. He pressed the cold silver coin against his palm and made a silent promise. One day, he would return to that house not as the son of the servant, but as someone they would have to bow before. Here is a gripping and graceful ending for the son of the servant, keeping the suspense and emotion intact while providing closure. Days passed in silence. The old quarters smelled of damp wood and thyme, but it became their shelter, their world apart from the mansion. Ian and his mother worked quietly, repairing broken shutters, sweeping away the dust, and cooking what little they could find. Each night, he would sit by the small window, staring at the distant mansion, remembering the silver coin pressing against his palm. It was more than a token, it was a reminder of what he could become. He learned to move with patience, to observe quietly, to plan carefully. His mother watched him with a mixture of pride and sorrow, knowing the boy she raised had begun to grow into someone stronger than fear itself. Weeks later, the storm returned, though this time it was gentle, a cleansing rain that washed the courtyard and streets. Ian's heart was steady now, no longer trembling with shock or anger, but burning with purpose. One evening, he stood beneath the banyan tree again. The mansion was quiet, the golden light no longer mocking, but distant and solemn. He pressed the silver coin in his hand, feeling the cold metal anchor him. The memory of the boy's cruelty, the fear, and the injustice would remain, but it no longer held power over him. His mother placed her hand on his shoulder. "It is time to step forward," she whispered. Ian nodded. He took a deep breath, letting the wind carry away the remnants of doubt. The mansion gates stood tall before him, the place that had once been forbidden, now merely a threshold. He walked toward them slowly, with measured steps, eyes clear and unwavering. Inside, the master's son waited, arrogance still etched in his features. But Ian did not see a boy to fear anymore. He saw opportunity, challenge, and the chance to reshape his own fate. The coin glimmered in his pocket, the weight of his destiny heavy yet comforting. He stepped into the hall, every footfall echoing through the empty space. And in that echo, Ian realized something profound. The son of the servant was no longer defined by his birth. He was defined by his courage, his resilience, and the choices he would make from this moment onward. The past could not hold him. The future waited, vast, uncertain, and entirely his own. And with a quiet, steady heart, he embraced it.